We're going to continue to talk about the wrapper class of integer and placing these integer objects, say, into an array list. But what we're going to be talking about is some things that Java has allowed us to do so that the code isn't quite so cumbersome. In particular, if you look at the line of code in here where we had all of this, let's see, right here. A-list.get0, we get the int value, and A-list.get1, and we get the int value. And after we add them up, then we say, hey, convert it back to an integer. And this becomes an awful lot of code where it looks like we're just trying to add two numbers and add it to an array list. So um, I'm going to show you a much shorter way that we can do this, and we're going to learn about these terms called autoboxing and unboxing. And as Java has evolved, they've said, yeah, we can simplify the language. And so Java automatically converts a primitive into an object type. That's called autoboxing. Or when it automatically converts an object into a primitive, that's called unboxing. But what I do want you to know is we do not have the option of putting a primitive here. If we did this and this, we would get a compiling error. All right, so that would be bad. We can only put objects in, so that cannot be done. All right, I'm going to erase that, and we're going to go and put this behind the other code. And there we go. Front to back. And we're going to take it line by line and compare it. So I've got tester method 1 behind and tester method 2 in front. And you'll notice the first line of code, setting up the array list, is exactly the same. But now look at this next line of code. A-list.add new integer 4, we can just add A-list.add 4. Now, what's happening there is Java is autoboxing for us. What it's doing is taking this primitive 4 and saying, oh, I'm adding integer objects. You gave me an int. I can just convert it to a new integer. So in the AP exam, they will tend to do it this old-fashioned way. But if you wrote your free response this way, they know that it works both ways. So the next few lines are exactly the same. New integer 22 and 2020. All of those I've got with autoboxing here, where it automatically converts the int to an integer object. Now let's look at this next line of code. That's that really long one. And now all I have to do is do A-list.get0 and add A-list.get1. It adds them up and it adds it to the A-list. Now what's happening first is it's actually unboxing. When I do .int value, I get an int, but I didn't use the method int value. It just said, oh, you're trying to add two integer objects. You must mean to add the ints. So it unboxes all of those, but then after it adds them and it adds it to the list, it actually does some auto boxing. So it auto boxes, so it's an integer object. And I didn't talk about this in the last one, but technically integer.minValue, that's a primitive int that it's returning. So we're doing some auto boxing on that line and also on this line. Every time we drop that new integer part, we're doing auto boxing. And anytime we don't bother to call on a method like int value, we are doing unboxing. Same thing happens down here. You'll notice here I said for each int I in A list, but A list only has integer objects. How can I say they are ints? Because it is automatically unboxing that integer object and turning it into an int, and then I can just print it, and this code works exactly the same as the last one.